All right, thanks for joining me today. We're going to talk about grading the Pittsburgh Penguins during the pause. Now, before we get started, I just want to ask you to please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, which will alert you when my next video comes out, which will be about the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, the last team I graded was the St. Louis Blues, and I've been shooting all 31 NHL teams in reverse alphabetical order, so I'll put up a bunch of links up here over the next few minutes for you to check out the other clubs that I've already done. Now, the Penguins are probably one of the most injury-riddled teams this year in the NHL. It's just one after the other. There is only one player who started with the team this season who has not missed a game. Can you guess who he is? In 3. If you guessed Marcus Pettersson, the defenseman, you are correct. Drink. Now, their record this year, how they've done overall has been pretty good, considering, right? They started off pretty good. They had a bit of a rough November, and then kind of coasted up until February, where it was kind of awful. And that's how it sort of stood. Now, they lost their last game before the pause. They were 3-7-0 in their last 10. They've got 86 points at this moment. They're 3 behind the Philadelphia Flyers and 4 behind the Washington Capitals, who sit first in the Metro Division. Now, when it comes to the wildcard teams who are chasing them, Carolina and Columbus both have 81 points, so just 5 points behind. Yet, all Washington, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh, by the way, all have played the same amount of games. Carolina, though, has a game in hand. So it's not like, hopefully they don't hit any more, big injuries if the season does resume. Otherwise, they could be in trouble. Now, speaking of trouble and drama, Jim Rutherford, their GM, is just... He must have done theater as a child or something, because it's never a boring season with this guy on the trade front each and every year. It's unbelievable. Now, of course, they brought in Jason Zucker from the Minnesota Wild, recently acquired Galchenyuk from the Arizona Coyotes in exchange for Kessel to the Wild, and they also grabbed Marlowe, the grizzled vet, who's trying to win his first Stanley Cup before he retires. They slapped him on the left wing besides Malkin. And then there was Connor Sheary, who they kind of surprisingly brought back to the team. Bring the band back together from the Buffalo Sabres, and sent Cahoon the other way, who was shocked to hear the trade. Now, let's talk about some stats before we move on quickly. Their power play is 16th in the league. Their penalty kill is 10th. Wins, they're 7th in the league. Points, they're 7th. Goals for, they're 13th. Goals against, they're 11th. Their shots against per game, they sit in 6th, only allowing 29.7 per game. Their face-off wins, they're 25th in the league. But I don't think that matters too much if your team's doing well. Look at the Washington Capitals, they're even worse in that category. Now, an interesting stat I picked out for this club was the fact that their biggest scorer was Malkin, who sits number 14 in the point standings right now among players, with 74, but in only 55 games, because he's had his injury issues as well. But if you look at points per game, he sits in 6th in the league at 1.35. Yep. The next one with the most points on this team right now, I was going to say Crosby, but it's actually Rust with 56. Crosby sits in 3rd on the team with 47 points in only 41 games, and 16 of those are goals. Now let's talk about the goaltenders before we move on here. Starting first with Matt Murray, who has not had a good season. In 38 games, he's got an .899 save percentage. Kind of off from last year when he had a .919. However, he was kind of average in the playoffs, but so was the entire team. Really, the Islanders, being under Trotz for the first year, just kind of suffocated them in 4 games, didn't they? They swept them. But I mean, you can never rule out this team. They're always either, the team that just won't die, or like they're like the cat that came back. Pick either analogy really. Now Tristan Jarry, who supposedly was supposed to be their backup goaltender, is actually playing like their starter. In 33 games, he has a .921 save percentage. And what's surprising about this is that he really, for the most part, hasn't put up consistently good numbers at all in the NHL or the AHL before this. And both of these goalies are going to be RFAs with arbitration rights by the end of the season. So one of them's got to go, really, because they just can't afford it with the cap and everything being so tight. And they have Casey DeSmith sitting in the minors, who's playing really well, and, well, he at least has good numbers whenever he comes to the NHL, let's put it that way. And he's making, under $2 million? So we'll see how that goes, because they've got to trade one of these guys before, A, maybe they give both of them a contract, or B, before the Seattle expansion comes into the league, right? Otherwise, they just lose one of them for nothing. Now, let's change gears here just for a second, and let's talk about the defense, which is actually pretty sturdy with Letang and Dumoulin on that top pair. Letang is putting up a good amount of points. I want to say he's got almost 50 or so far this season. Dumoulin is, a solid rock, defensively speaking. And kind of a surprising, really good second pairing is Pettersson and Marino, both in positive numbers. And Marino has kind of shocked a few people on how good he's been. And then, of course, the bottom pairing with Johnson and Schultz is where they should be on the third pairing. Schultz he's been injured as well, but when he has played, he's kind of been awful, really. Jack Johnson, actually, statistically, hasn't been too bad. I mean, he's not putting up points, but he's only like a -1. So, hey, take it where you can get it, I guess. The issue with this defense, when it comes to speaking about offensively, is that Letang is kind of the only guy putting up most of the points, because it drops in half after that, with Marino and Pettersson putting up between 22 and 26 respectively between the other two guys, and then everyone else is next to nada. So if Letang goes down with an injury, it just becomes that much more grim for this team. Fingers crossed. Now let's talk about the offense. There's so many guys coming in and out of this lineup. Zucker has stepped in to play next to Crosby. He's been doing well. He's been doing okay. Sheary doesn't belong in that first line, does he? You need to get Gensel back. Speaking of which, he went down with injury around just before January, and in 33 games, oh, I was looking at the wrong stat there. In 39 games, that was close, he's got 20 goals and 43 points, and is a +11. This pause could be huge for Pittsburgh if they can get a player like this back. He was supposed to be out for 4 to 6 months, so it's possible. Maybe he doesn't make the regular season if they decide to play that, but the playoffs could be a possibility. I mean, last year, remember, he had a breakout year with 40 goals and 76 points, and he played all 82 games. The rest of them have been chipping in, really. Marlowe's been okay. Rodriguez kind of doesn't belong there. You would think Sheary or Rust would bump into that spot, after Gensel returns. But, yeah. How would I grade this team? I'll give him an A-. I mean, really, with what they've been going through and all. And remember, Crosby and Letang are going to be 33, and Malkin's going to be 34 for the start of the next season, before the start of next season. So this is it. Like this year, maybe next year, and that could be the last of their window, and they can go back into somewhat of a rebuild. But as always, I would love to hear what you think this team should be graded in the comment section down below, especially you Pittsburgh Penguin fans out there. And that's it. That's all. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And hey, in this crazy world we're living in right now, please stay safe out there. And if you can, stay at home. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.